There was once in Burma an accomplished puppet maker who was also a master puppeteer. He created the most expressive puppets using the finest textiles to dress them. When it came to manipulate the multiple strings of the puppets, he was so dexterous that his puppets always seemed to be alive, particularly when he made them dance. His talent had assured him an honorable position among the greatest Burmese puppeteers. He had a son named Aung, and he expected him to become a puppeteer. He thought his son could soon perform with him and take over the family business to maintain the tradition of puppetry in their village. But Aung had no interest in becoming an artist like his father. He wanted to go to other places to seek his fortune. The puppeteer was sad about that, but agreed to let his son go. Before Aung left the house, his father offered him a special gift to accompany him during his journey. He gave him 4 puppets he had carved from wood, painted and sumptuously dressed. "These puppets are very special," said the father. "I recommend you use them wisely. Each one has its special virtue. The first puppet is Tagyamin, the king of the gods. His virtue is wisdom. The second puppet is Yaka, the green ogre. His virtue is strength. The third puppet is Zaogi, the sorcerer who practices alchemy. His virtue is knowledge. The fourth and last puppet is Kemba, the holy hermit who strives for spiritual advancement. His virtue is goodness. Go, my son. May these puppets help you in your life. But again, remember to use them wisely. Strength and knowledge must always serve wisdom and goodness. After thanking his father, Aung started off with his puppet companions and a light bundle of clothes. He walked all day, stopping only once to eat. And when night came, he found himself in the deep jungle, wondering where to lie down to sleep. He thought of his father, and with a smile, he stared at the first puppet in disbelief. "Tell me, Tagyamin, king of the gods, is it a safe place to sleep?" But to Aung's astonishment, the puppet suddenly grew to human size and came to life. Open your eyes, said Tagyomin. Look around you. That is the first step to wisdom. If you fail to see what is right before you, how easy it will be for others to misguide you. In a blink, Tagyomin disappeared, and his puppet was hanging from the pole again. Aung was shocked and not sure of what had just happened. But as Tagyomin had advised him, he looked carefully all around him. There, in the soft earth, were tracks of a tiger. It was suddenly not safe to sleep on the ground, and Aung decided to make his bed up in a tree. That night, Aung suddenly awoke. There was a tiger prowling below the tree. Attention and wisdom had saved his life. The next day, Aung resumed his journey. His walk took him out of the jungle and into the mountains. From up there, he had a splendid view and could see to the bottom of the valley. Looking down, he saw a long caravan of bullock carts loaded with costly goods. Aung very much wished he could have them all, and turned to the second puppet, the ogre Yaka. "Tell me, Yaka, how can I gain such riches?" Again, Aung looked in wonder as the second puppet came to life and talked to him. "If you have strength, you can take whatever you want. Just watch." And before Aung could say anything, the ogre stamped his foot so strongly that the earth shook. A piece of the mountain broke, and huge rocks rolled down to the valley, blocking the road below. The caravan drivers were terrified. They jumped out of their seats and abandoned the carts. "You see, that was easy," said the ogre. "Now just help yourself and take whatever you want." Aung rushed down, looking at all the riches abandoned by the drivers. "And all that is mine now?" he cried, very excited. But suddenly he heard a sob. Hidden in one of the carts was a beautiful young girl about his age. She looked terrified and was crying. "I won't hurt you," said Aung. "Who are you?"
My name is Mala. My father is a rich merchant, owner of this caravan. We were on our way to meet him.
All at once, Aung fell in love with Mala and wanted to keep her with him forever. "Do not worry," he said gently. "I'll take you with me and care for you." But the girl replied angrily,
Go ahead. Take me like you're taking everything else. But you are just a thief, and I will never, ever speak to you.
Aung was troubled. Was he really just a thief? He did not know what to answer, and turned to the ogre for help. "Do not listen to her," said Yata. "You're not a thief. You just took what was abandoned on the road. She'll change her mind anyway. Now it's time to move on." Then he cleared the road and helped Aung lead the caravan. At the end of the day, they came out of the mountains, not far from the capital city. Aung asked the ogre what to do with all the riches.
"Don't ask me," said the ogre. "Ask the sorcerer instead. His virtue is knowledge."
Aung turned to the third puppet. "Tell me, Zaugi, what should I do now that I have all these riches?" The puppet came to life and floated before him as Mala looked on with wide eyes. "If you want your wealth to grow," said the sorcerer, "you must learn the secrets of nature. Come with me." And as he tapped Aung with his red wand, they both rose high in the air. Floating high in the sky and looking down, Aung saw everything in a new way. He could tell what land was best for farming and which mountains held gold and silver.
"This is wonderful,"
said Aung enthusiastically. "Just think how I can help people with what I know." "Certainly you could," said the sorcerer. "But knowledge is power. Why not keep it all for yourself instead? Isn't that what other people do?" "I suppose so," replied Aung. And the caravan continued toward the city. When they arrived at the capital, Aung established himself as a merchant. With the help of the ogre and the sorcerer, he became very successful and grew many times richer than at first. He bought a magnificent palace for Mala and him and took good care of his puppets. But Aung was not happy, for Mala would not speak to him. He was very much in love with her. He tried to show her his love, treating her like a queen and offering her magnificent presents. One day, he placed before her a splendid gold headdress, set with dozens of large precious stones. The piece had cost Aung a third of his wealth, But Mala took one look at it and pushed it away. Aung was heartbroken. "Don't you know I love you?" But Mala did not say a word and left Aung alone in his huge palace. Aung was desperate and went to consult his puppets. "What good is all my wealth if I have lost what I care for most?" For once, the ogre and the sorcerer were silent and still. Then Aung remembered there was one puppet he'd never called on. He turned to the fourth puppet, the holy hermit, and said, "Tell me, Kema, why has everything gone wrong? What should I do now?" The puppet came to life and said, "Aung, you imagined that wealth brings happiness, but true happiness comes only from goodness. What is important is not what you have, but what you do with it." Then Tagyarmin, the king of the gods, came to life and said, "You forgot what your father told you, Aung. Strength and knowledge are useful, but they must always serve wisdom and goodness." From that day on, Aung promised to use his wealth and talents to do good, and he did. He built a splendid holy pagoda for worship and offered food and shelter to those who visited the shrine. One day, among the visitors, Aung saw a young woman he barely recognized. She was wearing humble clothes and was accompanied by an older man. "Mala!" cried Aung. "Is that you?" And he rushed over to her and knelt before her puzzled father. "Sir, I have done you a great wrong. I beg your forgiveness. All I have is now yours, and I will gladly give it up. I will be content to return to my father and make puppets. Mala, I implore you to forgive me."
"Father,"
said Mala softly.
"this is Aung. But it seems that he has changed."
"So it would seem," said her father. "And if so, it would be a shame to let go of a young man of such talent. Perhaps he could work for me for a while before returning to his father." Aung accepted the offer. He became the merchant's assistant, glad to repay his debt and happy to be able to live near Mala, whom he still deeply loved. After months of hard work for the merchant and goodness to all, Aung finally won Mala's heart and married her. He stayed to work with the merchant as a partner and never became a puppeteer. As for the puppets, Aung still called on them as needed. But though he was helped often by strength and knowledge, he was guided always by wisdom and goodness.